another mailbox story. I posted this as a reply to someone else's mailbox story. I was informed that it should be its own post, so here it is, edited slightly for clarity. This didn't start out as a quest for vengeance. We just wanted mail delivery to our house. Vengeance came as a byproduct, but it was truly delightful nonetheless. So, mailbox story time. This happened back in 1982, for the record. My folks moved to a very rural area on a gravel road. No one had previously lived here, so it was a battle just getting mail delivery in the first place. My folks went several rounds with the local postmaster. He was somewhat enamored with his own power and very much a rules-to-the-letter kind of guy. Every I must be dotted, every T crossed, and if there's so much as a semicolon out of place, you'll have to start all over again. He seemed to have made it his personal mission to make getting mail delivery to a new address as difficult as humanly possible. Ultimately, my folks managed to fill out the paperwork to his satisfaction, and he begrudgingly allowed us to put up a box and receive mail delivery at our new home. Dad was extremely careful in the placement of our box and making absolutely certain his was the exact height, precise placement from the road, etc., to avoid annoying our local postmaster any more than we already had. There are, or at least were, very specific rules about rural mailboxes. Dad followed every single one. That first mailbox was perfect. The man who drove the road grader was as annoyed as the local postmaster, as he now had a new driveway to accommodate. We suspect that's why he headed out for our mailbox. After the road grader had demolished 3 of our mailboxes, Dad got pissed. Previously, he'd used the most basic design, just a post in the ground with a box on top. Now, he was motivated. They'd got a hold of a 9-foot-long section of metal pipe. It's 4 inches in diameter, our measurement, and has 3/4-inch thick walls. I have no idea what this was originally intended for, but I know how Dad used it. He dug a hole 5.5 feet deep. He welded an upside-down tripod shape, think open umbrella, to the bottom of the pole and dropped it into the 6-foot-wide hole. Each welded-on leg was about 3 feet of some kind of rebar, and there were 5 such spokes. He then dropped some huge rocks on top of the tripod shape to hold it in place. The empty spaces around the huge rocks were filled in with gravel, and he dumped sand to fill in the air gaps. Then he filled the rest of the hole in with dirt and mounted the mailbox on top of the post. 3 days after Dad installed the new mailbox, we heard the road grader coming down the road. Our house is a 1/4 mile from the road, but we heard the loud clang from inside. We also heard the cursing and swearing from inside. No one went down to look until they heard the road grader drive away. When they did, the box itself was slightly dented on one side, but it was still firmly upright and functional. 3 weeks later, we received a bill from the township for a bent grader blade. It was accompanied by a letter informing us that we had caused damage to city property because our mailbox was installed incorrectly. It would need to be moved and we were liable for a bill of a couple $1,000 worth of repairs. Here's where it becomes pro-revenge instead of petty. Recall the fact that the local postmaster was annoyed with us over our battle to get mail delivery. Mom had made a point of each time we reinstalled the mailbox, taking photographs down to the post office and having the local postmaster sign off approval of the height, placement, etc. He'd done the same with Dad's super post and had documented, signed approval of the box dated the day before the road grader had bent his blade trying to demolish the box. She submitted copies of the invoice for the grader blade and the letter stating that the damage was our fault because our mailbox was incorrectly placed to the post office. She also submitted copies of the official post office approval of the box to the township. The jerk of a postmaster was also quite prideful and became furious that his authority was being called into question by some podunk township. As far as he was concerned, the township wasn't questioning my parents. They were stating that his judgment was wrong. I don't know what went down between the postmaster and the township, but we received a second letter from the post office reiterating their approval of our mailbox. We also got a formal apology from the township and notice that the road grader's contract had been terminated because he'd lied about damage to city property. It was worded with a tone that said, "Please don't sue us because a contracted employee damaged your property." For the record, that post Dad installed nearly 40 years ago is still standing. We've replaced the box on top many times. That post, however, has now wrecked 2 cars and a truck in addition to that long-ago road grader.
Intentionally unintentional revenge on a mailbox vandal. This is my dad's revenge, not mine, and this happened last summer. My parents live out on a lake just outside of town. Their property extends to both sides of the road, and their mailbox is on the opposite side of the lake and the house. Over the 4 years they had lived at the property, a black SUV has knocked down their mailbox 6 times. They catch the vehicle on the security camera on the gate but get no identifying info. My dad would report it every time, but not much could be done. It was knocked over by a drunk driver once as well, but he crashed a bit further down the road, so that was the only time that my dad got reimbursed for the damage. Well, after the 7th time it was knocked down, he had had enough. The land on the opposite side of the road dropped off steeply immediately after the shoulder, so my dad contracted some guys to build out a small gravel pad, 15 feet long and 3 feet deep or so he could set his mailbox back from the road. My dad told me that if someone tried to knock it down now, they would regret it. Well, about 4 months after the work was complete, my parents were awoken to a loud crash in the middle of the night. They called the police and went out to investigate. They found the black SUV off the road and having crashed into a very large tree. The guy was taken to the hospital and was charged with a DUI from the crash as well as possession of drugs they found in the vehicle. By building out the gravel pad and moving the mailbox back by just a few feet, it still appeared that the mailbox was on the shoulder and still seemed like an easy target. In reality, those 3 feet made all the difference. Because the pad was so short, the vandal left the roadway after the pad started, and when the right side of his vehicle went off the shoulder, the car went veering down the steep incline. The dude was pretty badly injured, and I know my dad felt bad about this. I think this was much more effective than he had in his mind. My dad isn't the kind of person to intentionally injure someone, so I am sure he was hoping to just cause damage to a vehicle and teach a lesson that way.
It helped me get back at my brother. I originally posted this into parts as it was unfolding on r/relationship advice, and a couple people told me to post it here. I didn't know this sub existed, but I'm happy it does. So, brother 23, we're twins, so mean. He's constantly doing messed up stuff to me, 23, but the worst thing happened 5 years ago. I got my first boyfriend when I was 18 and a senior in high school. I know we were young, but I really loved him. We'd been dating for 10 months when my brother randomly decided, for literally no reason at all, to make up a story about how he caught me cheating and tell it to my boyfriend. He planned it all out. He came up with details. He made it sound real. And because he's such a scarily good liar and a master manipulator, my boyfriend believed him. No matter what I said or did to prove it wasn't true, he believed my brother over me. My brother kept up with his act the entire time and refused to admit he was lying. At one point, I thought I'd finally gotten my boyfriend to believe me, but then he broke up with me a few months later and confessed it was because he was still convinced I cheated on him and he couldn't move past it. He said, "The worst part is that you won't just tell me the truth." And not to sound dramatic, but that still haunts me. I want to cry every time I think about it. And I still miss him to this day. Also, I think it's important to note that my brother has never once apologized. He's so insanely mean that he just thinks it's funny. I even asked him once if he'd consider hitting my ex up and telling him the truth for my peace of mind, and he just laughed at me. I never got over what my brother did, and I always told myself I was gonna do the exact same thing to him one day. He's dated several girls since high school, but he'd never been serious enough about any of them for me to consider tricking them. I knew it wouldn't hurt him like he hurt me if I just tricked one of his flings or something. But he finally got his first serious girlfriend last year, and after thinking about it for a long time, I decided I was gonna do it. We live in different places now, so I had to do it all online. I used a different method than he did. I contacted his girlfriend, pretending to be the girl he'd been cheating with. I made up an elaborate, detailed story like he did to me and even photoshopped proof and stuff. I made my story even more believable than he made his. And exactly like he did to me, I went as far as denying it even to him, because I knew he might use my text calls to prove to his girlfriend that it isn't true. He knew I was behind it, though solely because the girl I made up doesn't exist and there's no one else that would do this, but I kept denying it. His girlfriend wholeheartedly believed me, and my brother kept calling and texting me and begging me to give it up. Even though I still wouldn't admit it was me, he was manipulating me and arguing that it's different because I was younger when he did it to me and my relationship wasn't serious. But my relationship was serious, and like I said, I still miss my ex. My brother really, really messed me up. I have empathy, though he doesn't, and I was starting to feel bad for his girlfriend because she's innocent. I was kind of regretting everything and thinking that maybe I should tell his girlfriend the truth for her sake, not his. But then his girlfriend asked me a question which led to her admitting that she's been suspicious of him for a long time. So I pried a little bit and encouraged her to look through his phone. She told me she couldn't because she didn't know the passcode and he wouldn't give her access to it. I guessed a few passcodes I thought it could be and gave them to her under the guise of seeing it once, but not being sure which one I'd seen. That was kind of dumb, but I couldn't think of anything else to say, and she didn't question it. She got in because it ended up being the same one he's had since 2012 when our dad got us iPhones and made us use the same passcode, idiot. Anyway, lo and behold, it turns out my brother actually cheated on her, and my setup was the reason she found out. He's been talking to and hooking up with multiple girls for pretty much the entirety of their relationship. Not surprised because he's a terrible person and cheating seems right up his alley, but I'm shocked at the same time. I literally can't believe things worked out this perfectly. It feels like a dream or something. The universe loves me. I hate to revel in his girlfriend's misery, but I was feeling guilty about her being collateral damage. So I feel like this is the best possible outcome. I ended up being the truth. Well, not exactly, but you know what I mean. So I didn't scar his GF or leave her with permanent damage for no reason. All my interference did was speed up the process of the truth coming to light. In fact, my brother may have been able to hide his cheating forever if not for me. He probably would have just manipulated his GF or refused to give her phone access forever. She hasn't broken up with him, and I'm honestly not sure if she will. I decay how relevant that is, but it attests to how manipulative he is. He screws people over all the time, but somehow always gets his way anyway. It's honestly infuriating and scary. Anyway, I'm still not going to admit to my brother that I'm behind it all because there's no point. That would just get me in deeper trouble. I got a comment on my original post that said, "Deny till you die, baby." And that's exactly what I'm planning on doing, lol. Life's crazy.
Check out my other tremendous videos.